Hello children, hope you all are doing well. I welcome all of you to this session. Have you all read the complete text of To Build a Fire? Fine. Here I am to discuss the expected areas of questions that would be should be attempted by each one of us. Like the first part of the question could be based on plot and setting of the story, title of the story, theme related question, character related question. Apart from that, there would be event related question like when did the journey begin, how did it begin, what happened, okay, and during the journey, how was the first fire lit, when he had a halt for his lunch, or the fire that he lights after he gets wet, and how does he take his death peacefully, and the other literary devices used. Let's begin with the first one, plots. Okay, these are few areas or points you may take into consideration while answering your questions. Not to forget, keep adding relevant introduction and a conclusion related to the points that you have highlighted in your answer. Keep that in mind and let us discuss how we can answer the question. Okay. Now the plot of the story is very straight. It's a simple and straightforward story, moving from present to future, right? In the Yukon territory. Okay. People generally visited this land not for adventure mostly. It was in search of gold. Okay. So to make an instant fortune, people traveled to this place and took the risk and challenge of their life. Traveled at a temperature of 70 degrees below zero was something very, very unwise. Okay, on such a day, which was generally not usual for him to take a journey, then the man's rash nature and overconfidence that leads to the tragic consequences in the story that is highlighted at the end. Climax of the story, he fails to build the fire, though the death overpowers, panic multiplies. Okay, he's unable to. Death is so frightening, right? So that he starts running away from death to reach the camp and does not give up till the end. Okay, he keeps falling and rising and falling and rising to reach. Finally understands that death is inevitable and cannot. Okay, so he accepts it humbly. Whereas the dog follows its instinct and remains safe, leaves the man. Okay, the moment he realizes the man is dead, he leaves him and goes away in search of food and shelter for another provider. Okay, now setting is the time and the place of the story. Okay, it's an autumn time, cold snowy morning, harsh winter months. It's in Canada, the Yukon, close by Alaska and the Arctic Sea. Okay, so you can imagine the temperature out there. Okay, there is no sign of sun all over. It's sunstorm, which was very common. Temperature 70 degrees below zero. And the social circumstances of the setting are, there was an old timer who had already warned him that not to take a journey 50 degrees below zero. It was quite unwise of his taking the journey. Man, being a newcomer, was overconfident, takes the journey accompanied by a dog. Okay, had he had a companion with him, it could have been of a great help. Inexperienced and lack of imagination. He has a lot of knowledge and intelligence, but due to inexperience, he was unable to imagine what would be the condition of taking a journey in this kind of a weather through the creek. Right? So this failed him, okay, to pass by the Yukon territory. Coming on to the title of the story, to give an appropriate answer if a question is asked whether the title is an apt title or not, just talk about the significance of the title, holding on to it that it's a story which is simple but end is terrible and tragedy. Fine. and including the tragedy that takes place reflects the need to build a fire. Okay, so to build a fire, the title. Now to justify this, you can always mention how and why the fire was needed to be built, when, where, and what happens. So if you are, with the help of the lines in the story, if you quote and justify the reasons of taking his journey and all that, you will be able to give a good justification and a significance to the title. Apart from that, relevance of the title, yes, the urgency, right? When he gets wet, instant need was fire to warm himself and to overcome the cold, the numbness that he was undergoing. So fire definitely happens to be the central idea of the story. Okay, and the complete focus is on the man who is not named and the wolf dog. Clear? You can quote these kind of lines in the story to support your answers. Right? Another question that comes to my mind is, at any point of time, can fire-like object be the only important element for survival? Explain it. Okay? Take your time and just think about that answer. Okay, next is a theme. First one is man versus nature or civilization, element of naturalism. Second is adventure. Third one is importance of primitive instinct versus theoretical knowledge. Wisdom of experience versus youth and overconfidence. Now this young man, you can understand, is youth and definitely overconfident. Now out of the four, let me take the first one, man versus nature. How would you justify the answer? You can make an effective answer. Okay. In an introduction, you can write about to build a fire is effectively portrays the given theme. Okay. As we read in the plot, we read in the title, it effectively portrays. Okay. And the example, as you go by the story, the theme actually gives you. And definitely the environment was not suitable and it was a foolish decision to take across the journey when you are against the nature's might, you know. Events, series of events that led to his failure. One, he traveled the route which was less taken. Then he breaks through the ice, gets wet, 70 degrees below zero. You can imagine what would be the condition of his hand, leg, toes. Okay, and how difficult it would have been to breathe. Okay, now he tries to build a fire in panic, and then the mistake commits is he builds it under the spurt tree. And this, obviously, the snow above collected on the tree and the branches, it falls on the fire and results to its failure. Thrice he attempts to build a fire and poor fellow does not succeed even once. Okay, so all in vain. Rather, in the struggle, he burns his flesh. Okay, unsteady hand, unable to hold the matchbox, and burns his hand. Now, this makes the episode a failure, right? Apart from that, the second option what he has is accept death, right? Out of why he had to accept death? Because had he been, like organized well, experienced well, then this fear and panic would not have troubled him. He could have been more careful. Okay, and now when he has done all these mistakes, there was only one option: to take his death decently, okay, or with dignity. And finally, before that, before he dies, he admits his mistake. Okay, the mistake that the old timer had warned him not to take a journey below 50 degrees, whereas he took it above 50 degrees. That was below 70 degrees. He went to take a journey. That was wrong. Okay, so finally he takes a comfortable and satisfying sleep forever. Okay, conclusion says, finding the man dead, the dog moves on. Okay, he senses death, master failed, he moves on for the next provider who can provide him with food and fire. So this is how nature acts and reacts to our action. Nature gives us chances. Okay, he has given us awareness and knowledge, and if we fail to apply it effectively and adequately, nature never forgives. Right? Moving on to the character questions. So we have two important characters in the story, the unnamed man and the dog. Okay, the old timer was only to warn him. So we cannot have a question based on the old timer, but yes, we can have on these two. So taking on the man, only human character representing daring persons, but this man is very careless and rash. Okay, never thinks about the consequences of his action. He just move on. Had he thought about the consequences, he wouldn't have taken the journey. But as he never thought, underwent disaster. He even did not pay any attention to the old timer warning. Okay, that created a problem. Finally, when he was crumbling to all kind of problems, he thought of another crazy idea, of killing the dog and using the fur of the dog for his survival, as he had heard a man who survived a winter storm by killing a bull. Okay, so crazy idea. When you are at stake, all kind of ideas comes to your mind. So here was one. There were several weaknesses in the person. Still, he does not give up. Okay, he is exhausted, but still tries to reach the camp. He keeps rising and falling and rising and falling, and finally realizes death is inevitable, right? So accepts it with dignity. He is determined and persistent because he fights to reach the camp till the last. Okay, tries to build the fire, even with his numb hands, keeps on struggling. Okay, and even though in bargain he burns his hands. Conclusion is, an overconfident person meets his doom, for he is too individualistic and careless. Okay, that was the basic reason why he stumbled to death. Otherwise, he could have been a good adventure. Okay, moving on to the second character of the story, that is the dog. The dog's breed is a husky wolf. Okay, he is in contrast to the man. When the man represents intellect, the dog represents instinct. Okay, now intellect versus instinct was the condition here. The man conscious needs, okay, lacks instinct awareness and knowledge. Okay, he could not bring this together, whereas the dog relied only on his instinct and he could understand the surrounding far better than the man. Okay, if you remember, he was not ready to leave the fire when they halted for their lunch. Okay, and he wanted to stay there, but as the man moved on, so he proceeded with him. The natural advantage with the dog is God gifted fur. He has a coat. Okay, he has a good sense of smell. Okay, he is aware about the cold weather. He understands that it is unsafe to travel, so he keeps biting away the ice that keeps forming in between his toes. He never lets it accumulate. Okay, now he even understands the importance of fire. Okay, the value of it. He sits by the fire, unwilling to join and continue the journey, smells the man's death, runs to find food and shelter from the nearby camp of men. By attitude, has no affection for the man. It is because it's not a pet animal of the person, right? These dogs are used for pulling the sledge and accompany these kind of people while they're traveling in this cold surface. Okay, so obviously when he is not a pet, he would not have any affection for him. He was being treated as a slave, so often he was being whipped, so there wouldn't be any attitude of affection. Clear? Now moving on to critical appreciation. If you get questions based on this, begin with the title, mentioning that it's an apt title. It can be this, can be your introduction line. Okay, so give a small little comment on title, right? Then moving on to the value of instinct, you can put across how instinct was more important than intellect, and how the dog could survive with its instinct that the man couldn't with his knowledge and intelligence and advancement of knowledge, knowing about the surrounding. Clear? The message that we get is wants to warn the readers about the dangers inherited in the inability to think about future consequences. Okay, people generally think about present and react. Okay, they don't understand what would be the future of these reactions, so one needs to think about it. That is what the author tries to warn and put it across as a lesson to all of us. Okay, so this man lacks in the capacity to think the consequences, and that's why he is a sufferer. Language, style and language is a short story. This is in realistic fiction, narrative in nature, clear? And coming on to the tone, it's a cold, passionate one. It portrays intense graphic struggle to survive. Symbolism is fire, which represents life. The absence of fire symbolizes death. Struggle to life. Okay, the wolf dog represents the synonym of nature, who remains abiding with the rules and order of the nature. So it's basically, what the man is lacking, the dog is having or following the instinct, and that is how he survives. Figures of speech used are irony and imaginary. Okay, lines are quoted here. You can take a look. Fine, I think we have discussed a lot, and these discussion and points highlighted in the story, in the slides, will be of great help to you to answer questions. And don't forget, how the man, without listening, following instructions, succumbed to a punishable condition. So take care. Thanking you. This is Kajal signing out.